for another episode of the Tech Informist. Let's begin. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brad.
And on this episode of the Tech Informist, Mobile World Congress device thoughts.
YouTube announces YouTube TV.
Ever wondered what IP stands for? We'll explain.
Xbox Game Pass.
Nintendo Switch cartridges taste so bad.
Google pulls the plug on its Pixel laptops.
Microsoft is planning to bring mixed reality content to Project Scorpio and the Xbox One in 2018.
SpaceX wants to send a pair of tourists around the moon by the end of 2018.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tech Informist, episode 167, recorded on March the 2nd, 2017. Welcome to March, Brad. How are you?
Doing good.
That's good, because March is one of my favorite months.
Birthday for you?
Birthday for you.
Yes.
Anniversary, wedding anniversary for me.
Yeah.
And spring training is in full force.
Baseball's coming
baseball's
back.
here. The weather's going to start warming up. Even though we've had some great spring-like weather the last few weeks. But hey, who are we to judge? We're not weather people.
No.
We're podcasters. And we're going to be talking about some great little stories because this prior weekend was Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, Spain. And we're going to talk a little bit about the best phones that were unveiled and kind of just discuss a little bit about what we did see, what we read. But I'm going to let you start because I know there's one in particular that you really want to talk about, Brad.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Yep. LG G6 is an official thing. And it's fantastic from what I've seen. So I find it fascinating that it's sort of getting a little bit of hate from those of us who have not touched the device.
Insert Taylor Swift's hate, hate, hate. Hate is going to hate.
Yes. But from what I've gathered, the reason they played it more safe is because they wanted a solid device that they knew would perform well under all kinds of pressures, and that they even cut back on the battery just a smidge so they didn't have a Samsung situation again. Or not again, but themselves.
Right.
Really, it's kind of like a best hits for the G6.
So this is going to be the LG G6 Greatest Hits Edition.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so Snapdragon 821, 3300 milliamp hour battery.
That's correct.
Which I kind of think we had mentioned on the previous episode. We were thinking 3000 or 3100. I can't remember for sure because I'm getting old, folks. And my memory is just not the greatest. 32 gig internal storage, I believe, for the United States version. North America.
Yes. So that's the kind of silly thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in Asia, there seems to be 64 gig variants with the 32-bit DAC. We're not getting that here.
No,
we're getting wireless charging.
Yes.
Oh boy, can't wait.
Now, some people out there are probably thinking, but dude, wireless charging.
So I used to love wireless charging.
I did too.
And then Quick Charge came out. And then Quick Charge 2 and 3 came out. And guess what? Now I don't care.
And battery life, in my opinion, is better because the OSs are getting a little bit more optimized along with the hardware.
In fact, since I've upgraded to Nougat on my G5, my battery life has been astronomically better.
And that's without you doing what
anything.
I typically recommend by, okay, we get a major version update.
Blow it away.
Just blow it away.
Yep.
Start from scratch. So anything that might have been rogue and wanting to stick and linger, just kind of like make sure you kill it. Just kill it with fire, you know?
Like Facebook.
Exactly. But in this case, you didn't, and you said that you see not necessarily a performance increase, but battery performance increase.
Yes.
Good.
It's fantastic. But that aside, that's kind of the weird thing kind of going on with the G6 right now is the kind of different variants depending on where you live. Wireless charging is exclusive to the U.S.
Woohoo.
Which, again, I really would have rather have had that 32-bit DAC.
Which I think kind of boils down to the fact that United States, what would that be? The FCC that didn't approve the LG G5 DAC module last year.
I would imagine, but the reason the last year that it wasn't approved is because it changed the device as a whole, whereas this is built into the device, so there's no changing it. So I just never I don't know. I'm sure there's some other backdoor thing that we don't know about. What I do find interesting is most of the phones we're going to talk about, it's not actually labeled here, but I do know for a fact that the LG specifically will have HDR for the screen, not just the camera, but the screen itself will have HDR and Dolby Vision, which, as most of our listeners may know, we talked about that quite a ways ago, and it requires a separate chip to run that.
Okay. And you did mention about the 32 gig of internal storage for the United States / North America version. Yeah, you'll at least get a micro SD card slot if you do want to expand your storage and add all your videos, your music, and places to place all your photos and stuff like that. I don't know. It looks good. I'm worried, obviously, about the kind of quote-unquote glass, scratchy back. But again,
but I'll put a case on it, so I'm not worried about that. The camera is really where it shines from what I've also read and seen so far. It's a 13 megapixel shooter with the frame aperture of 1.8 for the regular one. Then the wider angle is a 2.4. So obviously you're not going to use the wide angle for your low light shots.
Same sensor, megapixel wise.
Yes, which is the big difference this time. Mm-hmm. So super excited about that, because sometimes when you do go to the wide angle, it gets a little grainy, compared to what we usually see now.
Still nice for your pocket camera.
Oh, absolutely.
But it could be better.
And then there are also two cameras on the front facing, which are, I believe,
5 megapixel with an f aperture, f-stop, 2.2.
Yes. I believe there are two. Here it's not actually showing two. But there's another wide angle option for the front facing on that one. 4K video, 30 frames per second, yada, yada, NFC, Bluetooth. Other thing that really gets interesting is it is an IP68 rating. Now we'll talk more about what Ingress Protection and all of that later.
Spoiler alert.
But it is, kind of cream of the crop when it comes to dust and water resistance. So,
and I think that's what every phone should have now.
That is a staple for a high-end device. Mm-hmm. If you do not have it, you are really, I'm looking at you, Google Pixel.
Whoa. Man, it's like shots fired.
Just saying.
Sony has also unveiled the Xperia XZ Premium, and
it is gorgeous.
Yeah, as most Sony phones, in my opinion, my personal opinion, I feel they have always been a very nice looking and well constructed, nice overall phone, yet they do not sell well here in the United States.
So typically I am not very much a Sony person, and that is due to my terrible luck with Sony products. Almost every single Sony product I've ever had, minus the PlayStation, has failed on me in some form or fashion, which is depressing. However, I would take a second look at this phone. The screen is gorgeous. The form factor reminds me very much of a Lumia 920 from back in the Windows Phone days. The other thing that's interesting and why it's probably not going to sell very well in the States is they are not allowed to use a fingerprint sensor on this phone in the United States due to some kind of legal reason. Yeah, another legal behind the doors thing that we don't fully know or understand. But just so you know, you will not have a fingerprint sensor if you live in the United States for this phone. So that stinks.
Yeah, it does. It is one of the nice things about now that Apple has done that with the iPhone, with a really nice fingerprint reader, and the one on the 6P, Nexus 6P works great. The one on the G5, I believe you feel it works great as well.
Yeah, it works fantastic. There's kind of a reoccurring theme with a lot of these phones too this year is all of the screens are getting the HDR treatment. So if you have Netflix and you pay the extra like $2 a month, you can have HDR quality video on your phone at least. Mm-hmm. And if you have that 4K TV at home with HDR, you can do it, there too, obviously.
Right. And the resolution on the Xperia XZ Premium is crazy high. It's 3840 by 2160, which is 801 pixels per inch.
Yeah.
That's like, wow.
Yeah.
So much bigger than anything else that we're talking about. And that's a 5.5-inch display.
And Sony's known for good imaging for their screens.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and, their camera software and hardware is usually really good. In this instance, a 19-megapixel rear camera and a front-facing of 13 megapixels.
So I'm pretty sure that this rear-facing camera was the one we were talking about that shoots pretty slow motion, real slow.
Yeah, that we talked about a few weeks ago about how you can do the slow motion mode to slow things down really, really slow.
Yeah, and for a camera phone, that's amazing.
Because I shot a couple videos this week with my iPhone, and because we had some people come out and cut down some trees, and to kind of watch that come down in full speed and then also film the next one in kind of a slow motion, it's like it's like really fun to watch and go back and look at that video. And I also did that because we took my stepson bowling for a bowling fundraiser, and when my wife was bowling, I did the slow motion thing when she was bowling too, and it was really neat because everybody else was like, "Oh wow, you can really check out how bad your form is whenever you're go back and review the video."
So actually, I did find the video capture frames per second for the Sony. At 4K, it does 635 frames per second. At 1080p, 960 frames per second.
Right.
My God, it is a beast.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we won't have the fingerprint sensor.
It's going to be one of the best cameras in a phone that hardly anybody's going to buy.
Other than, I would say, the Samsung, this may be a contender for one of the best phones for Android this year.
Bluetooth 5.0, Qualcomm Snapdragon 835, 4 gig RAM, shipping with Android 7.1, whereas the G6 will ship with 7.0. Mm-hmm. That's kind of interesting.
Again, it's kind of that greatest hits for the G6. They don't want to be bleeding edge this year. They want to dial it back just a bit.
Ain't gonna worry about that.
Yeah, they want to dial it back a bit because they're playing it safe, and I can't blame them. They need to hit this one out of the park so that way next year they can take that half step forward again.
Right. The G2, the G3 were very successful phones in my opinion. I think the G4 kind of took a step back because it had just a really different kind of design.
Not only that, but it's had so many issues, unfortunately.
Looping and stuff like that.
The G5, it just didn't take off in a meaningful way with the modular design.
Yeah. You've got to want modular design.
Yeah, and I do, but I don't.
Right.
It's a neat idea, but I don't know if I care.
Yeah, I understand. Next up, Huawei and the P10. 5.1-inch display with a 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is 431 pixels per inch. 3200 milliamp hour battery, 64 gig internal storage, and a dual lens, 20 megapixel monochrome, and a 12 megapixel RGB camera with an f-stop of 2.2.
So the fascinating thing about this phone is I believe it'll be sold in Canada, but not the United States.
That's the one thing about Huawei is that you typically can't get their best phones in the United States. And it doesn't mean that I want to kind of like give a bad feeling, like it's bad vibes towards the rest of the world, but I live in the United States. There's phones that I would like to get, but that's just the game that the world has to play because there's a lot of stuff that we get that other places in the world do not get. So I guess turnabout's fair play.
Yep.
It just happens.
Yeah. It stinks when, like you said, either one country or another can't get something.
Exactly. I mean, the phone looks nice. From the back, it looks like an iPhone.
Again, another gorgeous phone, honestly. The only one that didn't stick out to me in this whole list is actually Nokia's. It didn't jump out at me. I even think the BlackBerry Key
One, I
Key
believe.
One, yeah. I believe that is just even interesting at best. You know, I mean, I don't know. Just the Nokia, it's just there.
Yeah, Nokia actually unveiled three phones, and we'll mention a fourth one here in just a bit. So you got the Nokia 6 Art Black, like limited edition kind of thing. And then there's also the Nokia 5, and then the Nokia 3. And, of course, they've all got different specs. Nokia 3 is just a 5-inch 720 display with 2 gig RAM, 16 gig storage, 2650 milliamp hour battery. Not exactly crazy on the specs. Nokia 5, Snapdragon 430, 2 gig RAM, 16 gig internal storage. Not too bad. 5.2-inch 720 display, 3000 milliamp hour battery on that. Drop down to the Nokia 6. This is the one that I think's got some people's attention because I think it just seems to be a little bit nicer. And specs on that are 5.5-inch display, 1920 by 1200 resolution, 403 pixels per inch, 3000 milliamp hour battery, 64 gig internal storage, 15 meg camera on the back with an f-stop of 2 and an 8 megapixel front-facing shooter with an f-stop also at 2. Snapdragon 430.
Yeah. That's kind of bottom of the barrel.
But it's got a fingerprint sensor.
It does.
And you would imagine it's going to be somewhat durable because there's Nokia name.
I will say that I guess it could be the affordable flagship.
I like the look of it.
Again, I don't know why. It did not grab me this year. But it is worth noting that it does not have an IP68 rating or an IP rating of any kind. Actually,
yeah, that's kind of a bad thing.
Yeah, that's another. Don't know how that's going to work with people.
Mm-hmm.
Only one way to find out.
Yep, we'll see if Nokia can kind of make a comeback. Much in the same way, the BlackBerry's still trying to hang on with life support by unveiling the Key One. So that's all one word there. So BlackBerry Key One, supposed to be available for about $550,
which is actually pretty decent for a flagship.
Yeah, and this is going to have a 4.5-inch display, 1620 by 1080 resolution for 434 pixels per inch, 3505. Like, where do you get the 05 in the milliamp hour battery? 32 gig storage, micro SD card, expansion, 12 meg, f-stop of 2, rear camera, 8 meg, front-facing camera as well, with a Snapdragon 625.
So the 3 gigs of RAM versus the 4 on every other device we've talked about.
Right.
The really interesting thing about this, if you couldn't have guessed already, it has a full, quarter keyboard.
Yep.
So
it's BlackBerry, so they love their physical keyboards.
Some people really like them.
Some people
I'm
do.
not gonna, bash on them for it. It's definitely something I just don't care about anymore. Again, it just, when you don't have it for so long, you just kind of like, I don't need that. I'd rather have the screen reality.
I can't trace type on something like that, so
That's true.
Not exactly the most exciting device to me, but I still wouldn't mind trying it out.
Yeah, it's interesting, not necessarily exciting.
I think it's a nice looking device. I'm not going to poo it on that. It's a good looking little device, actually.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see if it's going to be what we think it's going to be. Because if you look at it, it looks kind of iPhone-ish in a way, to a point. It's got the USB Type-C connector at the bottom. I don't know. I don't think it looks bad. I think it would be, again, something nice to try. So also, we mentioned the Nokia 3310, and this is kind of a flashback to the heyday of Nokia and probably their most best-selling phone ever. And it looks fantastic. It's really eye-catching, and even though it is a dumb phone, just the thought that be able to have something like this for $49, euros, I guess that would be, 49 pounds is what it's going to be selling for. That's awesome. But, again, I live in the United States, and with the cellular bands that's included in this, Most of the carriers in the United States have already shut down the 2G networks, which is the 900 megahertz and 1800 megahertz frequencies. There goes that phone.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, no one's going to buy this right now. No one's going to want this in the U.S.
I would, because I think it would be a great phone to take on like a camping trip.
I don't
Because
know.
of the battery life. If you need somebody to get a hold of you and you need your phone to have a battery charge to it, this thing gets like, was it 20-something days standby?
So
You're going to get your calls.
yes, but if you have a signal, that means you also have the internet, which means you can still Instagram, Facebook, and all that other, taking all them pictures. And
But by having this, you're less likely to want to stick your face in your phone.
that's true.
Stick your nose in your phone, as they would say.
I'm all for that. I think I can do that on my own.
Oh, you've got the self-control.
I do.
Oh,
I like to
man.
think that I do.
Well, you knock that snow off your nose there. You know, snow cap on there. Get it down out of the sky.
But I don't know. I just personally don't think most people in the United States, we're talking about, I'm not saying about the rest of the world because I don't know. I don't think most people would go out and buy this specifically for one thing or one vacation.
No, I know, but
We're a use case. We're a very different breed, as it were.
I know. People don't want to go backwards with their technology, but it looks so nice. Comes in like 3 or 4 different colors: a yellow, an orange, a black, and I think like a gray. It just looks so nice, and
Gray
it's got
sounds
an updated version of Snake.
Oh, no.
Classic little. Oh,
Bet there's like 50 versions of those in the App Store right now.
I know, but it's not the same. I don't know. And I know I read that it was only like a 1350 milliamp hour battery. But again, you're not going to be doing a whole lot internet-wise where you really need all that battery.
Yeah,
If it's
that's
just
true.
for calls and messaging, good to go.
It'll work good in places like India and potentially places in Europe.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. It just looks so darn good. Next up, this is something that's been in the works for a while, and YouTube has finally unveiled YouTube TV. It's live TV streaming service.
So what kind of channels are we talking here?
All right, so we're actually talking about some, pretty major channels. So you're getting your regular network lineup: ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, CW. You're getting things like ESPN, ESPN 2, 3, E Network, Disney, FX, USA, Sci-Fi.
I would say ESPN is kind of some of the bigger ones for a lot of people.
Yeah, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2. You're getting the YouTube Red Originals, Fox News, CNBC, MSNBC, Local Now, FXM, Sprout. So a lot of things for people that like sports and also people that like good channels and also things for kids. And then you can also add on, I believe it is Fox Soccer and Showtime. And that's just kind of getting things started because it's going to be something new. And they've got a sign-up page where you can punch in your email and your zip code so that you'll be notified when it is available in your area, which, of course, it's going to start on the coasts in the big cities and work its way everywhere around. And the other nice thing, for $35, this is all those channels are included and more than I did mention, but you also get search, unlimited cloud DVR storage.
Interesting.
You're going to get recommendations, social interactions, and you can have up to 6 different accounts on that $35 package.
That's pretty good. Most are 4.
Yes, so $35 a month for up to 6 accounts.
Does this include the YouTube Red?
Yes.
Ho, now we're talking.
Well, I know it definitely includes the YouTube Red original series.
Oh, as in You don't have to sit there and listen to ads.
Which makes it more attractive to that younger demographic.
You can play music behind your lock screen, closed out and everything. So you could essentially have, in quotations, free music. Now I'm interested a little bit more.
Yeah. So each account gets its own personal DVR, which again, unlimited cloud DVR storage. I don't know if there's an asterisk after the unlimited, like everybody else likes to put in there, but they don't show the asterisk. We don't know. And you're going to get your own tailored recommendations whenever the app is in portrait mode. So again, you don't have to just be accessing this on Roku. You got your mobile device, you got your iPads, you got all these different ways to consume this technology.
There's one problem.
What is that?
Getting this into the living room with a good app.
The YouTube app on Roku is pretty nice.
I don't have a Roku.
I know. Well, that's because it's built into my TVs.
It's on my Xbox. And that app on the Xbox, the app usually built into the TVs are freaking horrible. They are terrible.
But see, here's where the cool thing is about the story we talked about last week about MyTube coming to Xbox One. It's tied to your YouTube account.
I guess they'd have to update the app to support this then.
I'm sure there could be a simple way to kind of do it because you just log in with your account and you've got access to your stuff.
And I wonder if YouTube would even allow them to do that.
It's a good question. Maybe they'll release an updated Xbox app.
If they do and it works fast, then I don't care. Then I'm golden. But as of right now, it's horrible.
Exactly.
So, however, the service itself seems really interesting, especially for the cord cutters like myself, like you. Again, some of the highest apps, or not apps, channels that you would think of are the ESPN, those are your sports, your live sports that are really hard to get if you're a cord cutter.
Right. And for us here in St. Louis, particularly, for me, baseball-wise, Fox Sports Midwest.
Yes.
I've got to have that. So I don't know whenever it says Fox Sports regional channels what all that really entails.
I would imagine
Midwest would be included, which would be great because typically if you get a cable package, that's the next step up.
Yeah.
And you get a whole bunch of channels that you don't really want. And you lose some of the ones that you do want because it's the stupid cable channel packages, stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, that's something I'm looking forward to, and I'm curious what everybody else is looking forward to.
It would be very smart of them to have a month trial.
Yeah, that would be really cool. 30-day trial.
And being as it's Google, I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that.
Yep. Flip a switch. Here you go. Try it out for 30 days. If you'd like it, there you go.
Sign up and we'll give you the first couple months free after that. And I don't know. They could come up with all kinds of things to entice people to get on the service. This could really change the game.
And if they start packaging it with Google Play Music. Hey, for $40 you get all this YouTube TV, you get Google Play Music and YouTube Red. $40 a month. There you go.
They're taking a page out of Amazon's book. They're just bundling all these services into one package. Yeah, it might seem a little expensive up front, but then you get down to what's really in there, and you're like, it might be worth it.
So like I said, it's something I'm looking forward to. I've already filled out the little contact me whenever it does become available in my area so that I will be one of the first to know.
Ingress Protection, as in IP, and what it means. Now, this has kind of always puzzled me, and I didn't think to look it up until just the other night, and I figure, hey, might as well talk about it. And it's actually quite simple. Ingress Protection, IP, is the rating that they give to electronic devices, and it's what each number represents what its effectiveness is towards, keeping dust out and keeping water out. Those are the two things that we're sort of talking about. The first number is for solids, and really the numbers that we see on phones. When I talk about this, I'm really just talking about phones. Because the Ingress Protection levels actually go from 0 to 6 for the first number, which is solids again, and they protect from things like fingers or small objects. tools, thick wires, and etc. Most wires and screws, like those are things that are not going to be in your phone. We're talking dust protection. Yeah.
Of course.
I find it interesting that the iPhone is actually only a 5, which is it's dust protected, but it's not dust tight. I find that interesting. So dust protected is a 5 and dust tight is a 6. Now, just because you're sitting at a 5 for the dust doesn't necessarily hinder your water protection. So that's a separate column. So the next number over to the right is your liquid protection. Again, it goes from 0, but this actually goes up to 8 and even beyond 8. It actually will get to a point to where there's 9s and 9K for high pressure, high temperature protection, but these are things that you're not going to see in consumer devices anytime soon.
Right.
8 is that's it when it comes to electronics right now. Some of the newer phones we were talking about with the IP68 rating, that's kind of the best you can get right now. Really, you're good. I'll just kind of shoot off a few numbers here. Most phones have somewhere from like 6 and up, I would say. And 6 is powerful water jets, 7 is immersion up to 1 meter, and 8 is immersion beyond 1 meter. Now that 8 should have an asterisk next to it because it's sort of up to the manufacturer how much further it can go beyond that 1 meter. So I just found this a little interesting. Did you happen to know any of these or what they stood for?
I had an idea, and I knew that the first number and the second number related to different things. I wasn't exactly sure which the first and the second number. I didn't know which one really correlated with the liquid versus the solid. But, we've heard for years IP67, IP68, IP this, IP that, and it's, okay, cool. We just knew that if it had this, we're good to go. It's supposed to be water, dust-proof, blah, blah, blah. But it is kind of neat to really see this breakdown on this link from dsmt.com. But no, it is something that we've heard about for a long time. It is nice to get a chance to really get a little bit more in-depth information.
So, kind of break it down.
Yeah.
Again, I actually did not know that each number was a different thing. I just thought, hey, the higher the number, the better, right? Not necessarily. Really depends on what you're looking for in your device.
Right. As always, the Galaxy S6, S7 Active, those are usually the more, hey, it's going to withstand and resist pretty much everything you throw at it.
So there used to also be a shock number
shock rating, yeah.
Shock rating that was included onto this, but now that's a separate rating altogether.
Ooh.
So keep that in mind if you're even curious.
Yeah, if you're wanting to drive over with a car or a truck or a tank or something.
I would say most flagships don't have that shock resistance of driving over it.
No. So this I know is going to be something that's big for you because you are a big Xbox gamer. I like to play games on my Xbox.
When you get time.
Yeah, exactly, which has been pretty minimal here lately because I haven't even turned it on in the last, God, it feels like 3 weeks to a month.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I don't think I turned it on the entire month of February. Now that I think about it.
Oh, wow.
It's really bad because I need to update my Titanfall 2 because the Livefire update came out last weekend and I didn't get in on the double XP.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm going to get my behind handed to me next time I do check in, I'm sure, because all the people are getting better and better and better and better.
Well, and what you really have to look at is the people that still do play right now are the ones that's all they play. Like when I check back in with Gears, I am playing the cream of the crop. So when we do win, it feels like a true win.
Right. But this new thing that Xbox is putting out there is called the Game Pass, and it's going to be working on, of course, the Xbox One. This is going to be kind of a take on like EA Access, and is available now to Alpha Ring members of the Xbox Insider program. You are an Xbox Insider, correct?
I am.
Have you looked into this at all?
I'm going to this weekend.
All right.
Basically, think of this as Netflix, but for games. And essentially, it is $9.99 a month. This does not affect any of your other, like your free games here or anything. It does not affect anything that is currently in place for Xbox. This is a new separate thing by itself. You do not need this, or you do not need, that is a good question. If you need gold to use this, I would imagine you do.
I would imagine, yeah, to really access the store and stuff like that. But not positive.
However, there are approximately 100 games to choose from that will, as Netflix does, cycle in and out occasionally, not by giant numbers of games. Few here, few there will cycle in and out as the months roll over. Yeah, that's kind of it. It's kind of Netflix for your games. You do have to download the games versus, I believe it's PlayStation Now, which is a streaming thing. Depending on what kind of internet speeds you have, that could be affected. Not talking to you, Daryl. But you could be affected by the speeds if you have a much lower speed. So they thought that it's just best that you download the game for your best performance.
And this is not just Xbox One games. This is not just Xbox 360 games. You get access to some from each platform. Mm-hmm. And just kind of rattle off some of the ones that are supposedly available for people to try right now. Banjo-Kazooie on the 360. You've got Dark Void on 360. Gears of War Judgment for 360. Gears of War Ultimate Edition on the Xbox One. Halo Spartan Assault on the Xbox One. Operation Flashpoint Dragon Rising on the 360. Perfect Dark Zero 360. Sunset Overdrive Xbox One. Viva Pinata from the 360. Just to name a few.
Phil Spencer was on Podcast Unlock this week from IGN, and he was talking about potentially in the future they could launch games on this service, sort of like Netflix original series. You know how you have the episodic games currently, and they'll bring out an episode every month or every couple months, and eventually you have a full pack of game. Well, he's talking about that potentially they could maybe launch games on this program, and you can only play that game on this program for maybe the first month or two. Or that there could be an episodic thing where you can only play this game on this program at this time, and then you have to wait for the next one, and so on and so on. I find that really interesting that he's thinking that much into it and trying to change the industry, and I really like that. In the same way Nintendo is trying to change the industry right now themselves.
So the way that I understand this, they say that it is a free way to do this. I don't know if it's
right now. Yes,
you're going to eventually have to pay for.
Yes, it is $9.99 a month
in the quote-unquote test catalog to try this out. And again, you've got to be in the Xbox Insider program. Yeah.
Right now, I could go and play those games for free because I have the Insider program.
Well,
but I'd have to have the time for that. No, but eventually, when it is launched later this spring, it will be $9.99 a month again, just as much as Netflix. And think of it like, what's that game service, GameFly? Mm-hmm. Except you'd have a bigger catalog and you can just do it instantly.
All right, you don't have to wait for them to ship you anything.
Right. Unfortunately, it probably won't be any of those launch titles that you could get from GameFly. But, I mean, even getting those launch titles from GameFly is sometimes difficult. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, you really got to get in the queue early.
So I really, really, again, I believe in Phil Spencer. I trust Phil. I really... Phil 2020.
There you go. There you go.
No, he belongs at Xbox. I really like what he's doing. I'm really excited for what Xbox is doing this year. I guess we'll just kind of stay tuned for what's next.
So from my understanding, by the time that this episode is released, the Nintendo Switch will have its worldwide launch because it releases worldwide on March the 3rd, which in the United States is tomorrow.
3 hours.
Yes. 3 hours. My God, it's already that time.
Yep.
Man, time is flying. In the last couple days, as more reviewers and bloggers and YouTubers and all these people start getting their Switches, people have decided, hey, let's put it in our mouth to see what it tastes like. And they're finding out it's got a very bad taste.
And it's funny because this bad taste is actually intentional. Nintendo has written back to Kotaku, and this was as of last night. To avoid the possibility of accidental ingestion, keep the game card away from your young children. A bittering agent, and I won't even pretend to pronounce this,
denatonium benzoate,
has also been applied to the game card. This bittering agent is non-toxic. And this is a statement given to Kotaku from Nintendo directly. I have accidentally tasted this before.
Not a cartridge, though.
But it's not a cartridge.
This was something that his mom put on some shoes to keep Brad from chewing on shoes.
Yes.
Wait, no, not like a puppy.
No, for a cat, actually. My cat, who loves to chew on wires.
Yeah, you should spray all your cords with it.
And I have. Problem is, every time I touch those cords, it comes off on your hands.
And the next thing
I go to
in your mouth, you're like,
it is so ungodly bitter, and it spreads like wildfire, and it doesn't go away for a good 30 minutes. It is terrible. Don't do this. Actually, you're probably going to. No, go ahead. I'll wait. How'd that taste?
So in other words, these little Nintendo Switch cartridges don't taste like chicken.
No. Very spoiled and over... Yeah.
Nasty. In a somewhat surprising move, you put a story in here about Google pulling the plug on its Pixel laptops.
Yeah, this kind of doesn't make sense for the steps that they were taking to put Android apps on Chrome OS. It's kind of puzzling as to why they would pull the laptop, because that's kind of the reason. I don't fully understand this, and there's not really too much to say other than this. Is it the second version of the Chrome Pixel?
Yes, they're on the Pixel 2.
So that second version is the last version for now, at least. I mean, from what I hear, everyone loves the Chrome Pixel 2.
And it sold out like last August and has never been restocked.
It's $1,300 though.
Which, when you think about Chromebooks, the big market for Chromebooks is typically like
lower.
Schools.
And lower end.
That's going to be buying in bulk and stuff like that. Hey, we're going to do a one-to-one school program where kids are going to get laptops. But they're Chromebooks, which, yes, they're laptops. Yes, they are very functional and can be very useful for the majority of school-related use cases. Mm-hmm. But I think for the great majority of people, it probably wouldn't work too well. Because I've got to have an internet connection to use. Yeah. Well, typically you're not going to be just sitting somewhere and not be using an internet connection.
Well, I wouldn't say all of that is completely true anymore. Mm-hmm. They have worked it to where a lot of those apps can work offline now. That used to be the case, that you had to have the internet connection, which that
was a big problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. However, for whatever reason, Google will not be continuing these, and I guess we'll find out why whenever Google I/O happens, maybe.
Right, which I believe that sold out quickly as always. Mm-hmm. So that'll be coming up in the next few months, and curious to see what's going to come from that, because tech world just never stops.
I also ran across another story last night that piqued my interest. It has been hinted that the Xbox Scorpio would be able to run some kind of AR VR by Todd Howard, I believe, from Bethesda. But Microsoft actually publicly came out and said in 2018, both Project Scorpio and the Xbox One will be able to run some kind of mixed reality thing. Obviously, we don't know what that is. But I find it fascinating that it also includes the original Xboxes. So I would imagine that they'd have some kind of breakout box, the way the PS4 does for the PlayStation VR for the Xbox One, and that potentially Project Scorpio just doesn't need that because it has the horsepower to run it. But what do you think of running VR, AR, and everything in between on your Xbox?
It never made sense why Microsoft really stopped pushing the Kinect, because that's one of the main pieces of equipment on PlayStation, using the PlayStation like eye camera, that actually makes this useful because sometimes, like with the HTC Vive, you've got to have those little tracking cameras in certain places. Well, that's kind of what the Kinect would do.
True. The only thing, though, is with the PlayStation is slightly limited, as you cannot actually turn around and use your controllers because then it can't see them.
Right.
Unlike the other two, which can sense them otherwise.
Yeah, you're still going to be facing the television and facing the console. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do about this because, well, obviously the Project Scorpio is going to have the higher horsepower. We know that.
Yes, and it is worth noting that Phil Spencer sort of hinted that they're not going to just announce it at E3. That would be too much to do in one show, and that potentially there will be an event beforehand that will be controlled by them, which good on them.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, because you want something like this to have as much news cycle as possible, not
exactly
lost. And I wouldn't say lost. Lost is kind of a bad term because something like this would be big news, but it kind of would get not as much attention as it normally would if you do a separate announcement a couple weeks, month later.
I find this interesting, though, that in the past year or so, every year they're like, hey, look forward to next year. We have this thing coming. Well, it's next year. We have Project Scorpio, and now they're like, hey, look forward to next year. This thing's coming. I find that fascinating that they keep you looking forward towards something new, another date to wait for, which in the gaming world it's kind of fun, actually.
It's kind of like your princess is in another castle. Go to the next level. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it as somebody that is kind of keen on wanting to know what's going on with the virtual and augmented reality worlds. I think it would be something really neat to have. And as more OEMs kind of start getting all the reference technology and putting out their own little headsets that are functional and can work with Microsoft's hardware, you don't have to rely on a $3,000 HoloLens to do something like this. Make it affordable so people can actually buy it and
it sort of sounds like we might have multiple options, that we might not just be pinned down to one device. So it could be cheaper.
Could very well be cheaper. So we will see. All right, space travelers. SpaceX is planning to send two tourists around the moon in the year 2018. Would you want to go, Brad?
Oh, God, yes. I just don't have the money.
Exactly. And I'm really curious to know how much this is going to be because I'm looking at an article on the New York Times. I'm not really seeing a price for what this trip is going to be, but I know it's going to be millions of dollars to do because the Falcon Heavy rocket itself has a list price of approximately $90 million.
Uh-huh. Then you have to include the fuel that it would take to just lift yourself and anything, I guess, you bring off the ground. And each pound, it's like
precious.
It's like $1,000, or I think, ish dollars, if I remember correctly. Now, what's fascinating about this is this hasn't been done for the past 40 years. We have not left low Earth orbit in the past 40 years. It's about time that, again, Elon Musk just, I guess, steps up to the plate and innovates and gets people excited about things.
No one else is going to do it. Why not me?
I think that's the way he thinks. He started a company called Boring to bore under the ground to see if there's any way to maybe solve some congestion in cities, because we're clearly not going to have flying cars anytime soon. You could only imagine that, he has SpaceX. He has the funds for doing this kind of thing. The PR alone, if it went wrong, could be really bad.
Yeah.
If it went right, could really excite the public again about space. And I really hope we get towards the latter on that.
Yeah, I think that would be really, really cool if they can do this. And it's not like it's a 3-hour tour, Gilligan's Island fans. This is something that would actually take approximately a week to do. So it's going to be a quote-unquote long loop around the moon. And they're calling it kind of like a weekend cruise, which would fly past the surface of the moon but not land and continue outward before gravity turned the spacecraft around and brought it back to Earth for a landing.
Yeah, it's just even thinking about the journey for a week in that small capsule is slightly terrifying.
Yeah, very.
But still, the opportunity to do that. Oh man.
And according to this story, also, again, it's from the New York Times, last week a crewless Dragon capsule taking cargo to the International Space Station aborted its rendezvous because of a glitch. But it did arrive successfully a day later. That's okay.
And no crashes, no blowing up.
Right.
And watching that rocket land is like somebody just hit the reverse button. And you're just watching it kind of fast forward in reverse.
It's just...
I said fast forward in reverse.
It's funny. Okay. That's okay. Gotcha. So it'll be interesting to see if they do pull this off. Again, this is supposed to happen in probably later 2018. So 2018, even though we're only 2 full months into 2017, 2018 is shaping up to be a very interesting, I want to live for kind of year.
Yeah.
To see this kind of stuff. All right, folks, it is time for our app, entertainment, and hardware picks. You've had a chance to watch some movies and some shows and do all this other stuff. Share what you've got.
I have something to contribute this week.
Yes,
before
sir.
This starts to autoplay.
Autoplay.
Yay. So this past week, we were looking for a movie to sit down and watch, something we all three have not seen. And by that I mean me, my wife, and Justin. Because we live so close to him now that we just hang out quite a bit. But we sat down and finally watched The Lobster.
This is like B-52s or whatever, Rock Lobster.
No, so
okay.
The premise behind the movie, which stars Colin Farrell, the guy, Colin Farrell's character, goes to this hotel. So there's this society, imagine this society where you either, like, you have to be in a relationship with somebody. There is no single life. And if you are living a single life, it is kind of illegal. And those people kind of live off in the woods. The funny thing is, when you go to these hotels to find your next wife, husband, whatever, if you don't find them within the 30-day allowed time, you get turned into an animal. His character wanted to be a lobster. I won't say why, but you'll figure it out very, very soon. But he wanted to be a lobster. You actually get extra time for doing certain things. Again, don't want to spoil too much story. But yeah, there's 2 different kind of factions of this world, and there's kind of no in-between. It is so strange. The music choice, some of the shots, is such a strange movie. I could definitely see why a lot of people maybe gave it really terrible reviews on Amazon, which is where we rented it from. But, I loved it. I loved that movie. That was a really good movie. I haven't seen a really good movie in a while, it feels like. But it was a fantastic movie. Again, warning, it is a very weird, strange movie. So you may or may not like it. But I'd say it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I've heard kind of mixed on it. Some of the people that I do listen to on some St. Louis radio stations, they've said it's one of those, not necessarily a sleeper kind of movie. It's kind of a cult following kind of movie. I mean, it's got an 82 meta score from Metacritic, and on IMDb, out of nearly 113,000 ratings, it's 7.1 out of 10. So that's not too bad. I mean,
yeah,
7 essentially out of 10. I think it's pretty good.
I think the reason I like it so much is it was just so strange.
So different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is something that's been on my radar to see, so I do need to get around to checking it out. And another thing that I've been wanting to get around and check out is the next one that you got on here, the People versus OJ Simpson documentary.
This one is actually a little strange for me personally. Before starting this, I didn't know a lot about the OJ Simpson trial.
I lived it. I was alive. I was 18 when this happened.
I was alive too. However, I was a kid, number one. Number two, my parents were getting divorced, so I had bigger fish to fry.
Other things on your mind.
And obviously this went on for like 8 months. And
yes, it did. Wow.
And obviously the whole divorce thing, that can take even longer. So I was very, very foggy on so many details. So this was almost new to me. I did live through it. I did remember things popping up on the news, but I obviously did not follow it because, again, young child when his parents are getting divorced. So the show itself is fantastic. Every single actor and actress in this show does so good that you believe that they are those characters. It is incredible. People gave Cuba Gooding Jr. a lot of flack for maybe not looking exactly like OJ, but you can't look exactly like a person if you're not that person.
Exactly. I hate when people, it doesn't look nothing like him. Well, I mean, there's ballpark look like somebody, and then there's ain't nowhere near, not even on the same planet.
You know the famous time when they have him try the glove on and it doesn't fit?
And he just kind of like shrugs.
So as he's walking up to the jury, he even has OJ's smile down to a T. It is incredible. I have nothing bad. John Travolta is an actor again in this thing. He is fantastic.
He's not trying to do any Scientology stuff?
No, I don't know. Okay. I don't know what is so good. I highly recommend watching it if you like the, crime story kind of thing. Obviously, this really did happen. It is a really insightful thing that FX put together, and they're actually doing a second season.
I was going to say, I see that. Interesting.
What is the second season on?
Let's see. It's sometime in 2018, according to IMDb.
They actually have a topic on it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe look up American Crime Story Season 2 and it might pop up. But again, People vs. OJ, very, very good. Next up, I just wanted to mention that Minecraft has sold 122 million copies.
Not bad.
That's pretty amazing. The most sold game is Tetris still, and I believe it's at 200 million-ish.
It's very
right
possible.
Under.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous how many different versions and how many people have bought and played Tetris. But man, Minecraft. Again, I know I've said it before, but I would love to have had this as a kid.
I mean, you can still be a kid.
I think at that kind of time that I'd want to devote to something like this, man.
No, it is. I really do enjoy Minecraft, and I usually play it when I either run out of games to play or just need to disconnect from the world for a little while.
Go and grab some resources and build some stuff.
Yeah, just kind of be creative and do some real weird digging and building.
And it has roughly 55 million monthly players.
That's pretty impressive.
That's crazy.
Most online communities do not keep that.
They don't even sell that many copies of their own game.
That's true. Well, I mean, GTA just sold, was it 75 million or something? I mean, that's a lot for a game.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all still active.
Exactly. It's a big difference between what's active and what has played the game. This is just insane. But, kudos to the team that came up with this thing, because it has just been a runaway smash hit.
Mm-hmm. And good on Microsoft for being a good parent company to... They could have just pulled everything back in and like, you want to play this? You have to come here. They're putting it everywhere. Right. Anywhere and everywhere it can go, that's where they're putting it.
Yeah, they just kind of just oversee things and just make it available for everybody, because they're making money from the investment.
It's one of the number one titles I want on the Switch. So,
that would be amazing.
Wouldn't it?
Switch.
A full-fledged, essentially, version of Minecraft portably.
Is there a Minecraft on any of the DS systems?
No.
Okay, so that leads me to believe
Big
that
deal.
Probably not going to come to a Nintendo unit.
Other than the Switch. I mean, they did do it for the Wii U.
So they do have a Wii U version?
They do have a Wii U version.
Well, okay.
Which
so
is,
they do have a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's how they started the ball rolling, which is good. Microsoft needs a good relationship with Nintendo, I think. Because I'd love to see them do something with Metroid. Because Nintendo's not.
Since we haven't heard anything about possibly Minecraft on Switch, I would presume that would probably be a 2018 release.
No, it's this year.
Oh, so there will be a Minecraft
sometime
on
this summer.
Switch. Really?
Yep.
Okay. Again, I've had my head in the sand, as with a lot of those little things. Okay.
The last thing I wanted to mention is that Alien Covenant is very, very close to coming out. What is it, May 20 something, or maybe Friday in the teens. Anyway, it's in May.
A couple months away.
Yeah, it's not that far away. But they just released their final official trailer.
Another official trailer.
And there is no hinting around xenomorphs this time. They fully show, full-grown xenomorphs doing their thing.
It was like pulling back the curtain. Here's what it does.
Yeah. It's like that naked guy in the trench coat just opens it up and you're like, oh! No,
yeah,
but...
Brad has to go there.
This series is really near and dear to my heart, if you couldn't tell. Ridley Scott is the one who started it all, so it's kind of fitting that he kind of reboots it, as it were.
Will Sigourney Weaver make a cameo?
I doubt it.
Okay.
But from what they're doing so far, I am a big fan.
So according to the trailer, which I did get a chance to watch before we recorded this, it's like there's sending a bunch of couples up into space, and they're
to colonize a new planet.
Yeah,
it's
just send couples. Yeah.
Hey, it's a livable planet.
Right?
How'd that happen?
Hey, oh my God, there's wheat here. How did wheat get here? I don't know, and I don't know if you're going to find out in the movie, but you're going to find out there's some bad ass creatures apparently on this planet.
Oh yeah.
And seeing that, what did you call it, a xenomorph?
Yeah, it's
like head banging the glass. I'm like, What is this guy doing?
Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. I am
giddy with excitement. I can tell.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, another Gears release. Woo!
I do have another movie to talk about, but I'm saving that for next week.
But there is no next week because that's something we do have to mention.
We'll talk about that later.
Exactly. Beer pick of the week time.
So this one really took me by surprise. Here in St. Louis, we're very fortunate to have the St. Louis Brewery, a.k.a. Schlafly, makes a fantastic Kolsch because they actually have a yeast strain straight from Kolsch, Germany. It was a wedding present, I believe, to...
I believe so.
Tom Schlafly. Mm-hmm. American Kolsch by Boulevard Brewing Co. is fantastic. It is quite delicious, actually. The aftertaste is really what nails this beer. It has that sort of malty, weedy, kind of more herbal aftertaste than you would expect from a lighter beer. And I love it. I can't wait to actually pick up some more of this. It's a good spring and summer kind of beer.
Looks like it's available in cans as well, which that is always a great option.
I believe it's only available in cans.
That makes it even better because you can easily get it. I like that.
At 4.6 ABV, it is a very light beer. So, it's an all-dayer if you wanted. 18 IBUs, so real kind of low in the bitter units. But I gave it a solid 4, honestly, and I just really, really like this beer.
It looks like it's new because it was just added to Untapped back on January the 15th of 2017. So it's new.
Yeah, we as in me and Justin, or Justin and I rather, were walking through Friar Tuck's as one does on a Saturday, and happened to stumble across.
I met up with them. I didn't get to go to Friar Tuck's with them.
Yeah, you were doing work.
Yeah, I was working still.
But I highly suggest picking this up, especially due to all of the nice weather we've been having.
Yes.
So, American Kolsch by Boulevard Brewing Co., which is...
Kansas City, Missouri. It's another Missouri beer.
Is.
We will claim them.
Yes, it is.
Way to go, team. Missouri. Beer country.
Drink Mo beer.
There you go. Drink Mo beer. All right, so that does it. And kind of like Brad kind of dropped that little teaser a little while ago. He mentioned episode next week that he wants to talk about another movie. Well, there isn't going to be an episode next week because, one, I'm going to be in the middle of on a boat somewhere.
In the ocean.
I'll be on a boat. And, well, it's tough to host a podcast by yourself. And yes,
especially on their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and I know there's some people that could probably help Brad make this episode happen. But, things have just been really, really crazy busy with...
On both of our ends.
Your workload has increased. I've picked up some new podcast clients here in the St. Louis area, so I've been trying to get all their new stuff kind of squared away before I do go on this brief little getaway that my wife has set up because she said, hey, you want to go on a trip? I'm like, yeah, if you can set it up and make it happen, by all means, I will go.
Yep.
And thankfully, she took me up on that challenge because she's making it happen, and we're going to go. We're going to go on a boat ride again, and it's been a while since we've been on a boat ride.
I love cruises.
Exactly.
I can't wait to do it again.
Fun. Yeah, so drive to New Orleans next week. Hop on Carnival Triumph, I believe it is. Yeah. And go to Cozumel and I'm going ziplining.
So, okay. That's funny. You will probably see the Carnival Dream along the way because that's the one we rode because we did...
The Dream goes eastern. We're going western.
Ah, okay. So, because we also stopped at Cozumel. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, that's all. So you're just going to drive straight down 55.
You did go western then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you're just driving down straight 55 till you hit Louisiana. And...
Yep. I'll stay in a hotel near the port and then spend the day Thursday morning and afternoon in New Orleans.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Things, and then we board the boat at about 2:30ish.
Might have some recommendations for you.
As does Mark Bologna, who I met at Podcast Movement back in 2015. He does the Beyond New Orleans podcast. Or Beyond Bourbon Street podcast. Sorry, yep. Mark. All apologies in case you're listening. Beyond Bourbon Street podcast, which if you would like to learn more about New Orleans, I highly recommend it. He's got some great tips and suggestions and highly, highly recommend it. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing next week. And then whenever we do get back, probably be a lot of Switch talk because one, Justin's going to have his Switch. Yep. In fact, he's already got one of his games, Bomberman. I think it's Bomberman R or whatever they call it. So he will have his Switch, and hopefully between now and then, I will have a chance to visit with him and kind of see it.
Hopefully.
And get a chance to play a little of it. So it's going to be exciting. We'll talk about that.
Can't wait.
All the different little things that will be happening between now and then. So, again, that does it for this episode. My name is Kevin Harvell, and you can find me on Twitter at Kevin Harvell, and that is...
Brad Whiteside. You can find me on Twitter at holy_shadows.
And what is your Instagram again?
At holy_shadows.
All right. See, that's easy. I like that. Yeah, so I'm going to probably be taking a lot of pictures that won't show up until we get back to New Orleans on, I believe it's that Monday morning. And that's when I'll probably be uploading things throughout the ride back home because I'm not driving the entire time. We're going to be splitting the driving duties because we're going with another couple. It's not just me and my wife. So we're going with another couple.
So when I drove back, because it just saved, and we didn't do the flight thing back, but we drove back instead to save on the flights. I drove the full 10 hours because I had a bunch of podcasts to catch up on. So I was like, hey, I'm ready. Let's do this.
I'm like that. I could just, and that's almost, I like the idea that we're going with another couple. But then I don't because I don't get to. I'm going to be like obligated to talk and visit. Like, I'll be with you on a boat for 4 days.
Yeah.
Can't I listen to my shows? Listen to some books?
I think I would me personally, I would tell whoever it is that I went with, like, look, it's nothing personal. But once we get about an hour or two in, I'm plugging in and I'm going.
Right.
So
we'll have our excitement. We're on our way kind of talk.
Yeah.
Initially, as soon as we set out, and then. All right, I'm plugging in. Bye-bye. We'll see. We will just see. So
we will talk to our listeners in about 2 weeks.
Right. We'll be back. Don't worry. We'll be back. That's it. Until next time, consider yourself informed. Have a wonderful next couple of weeks. We're out.
Bon voyage.